Welcome to the EmpowerElle Podcast. I'm your host, Vero, and I'm so excited to have you join me on this journey of empowerment and growth. This podcast is designed for ambitious, high-achieving women who are ready to break free from overwhelm and step into their power. Together, we'll explore practical strategies, share inspiring stories, and hear from experts who can help you navigate the challenges of balancing ambition and well-being. Whether you're looking to cultivate confidence, transform your mindset, enhance your leadership skills, or find harmony in your life, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the EmpowerElle Podcast. I'm so glad that you're here to learn about something that could shift the way that you lead and live. Today's conversation is all about how to build momentum by starting with the easiest part of a project. So take a deep breath and let's dive in. If you're someone who has big goals, big visions, big ideas, but sometimes find yourself stuck when you're just trying to start, then this episode is for you. Because the truth is that starting is often the hardest part. Not because you're incapable, not because you're lazy, and definitely not because you lack discipline. Most of the time, we don't start because it feels too big, too complicated, too overwhelming, and too uncertain. Your brain looks at everything that needs to happen and immediately goes into protection mode. And that's where procrastination shows up. But today, I want to introduce you to a strategy that is incredibly simple, incredibly effective, and often overlooked. And that strategy is this: start with the easiest part of the project. Not the most important part, not the most strategic part, not the most impressive part, the easiest part. And that simple shift can create incredible momentum. Now, before we talk about momentum, we have to talk about resistance. Because resistance, it is what stops most people before they even begin. When you start a project, whether it's launching something new, preparing a presentation, creating content, or making a big change in your life, your brain naturally scans for risk. It asks questions like, what if this doesn't work? What if I mess up? What if people judge me? What if I fail? And because your brain is wired to protect you, that's its job, it interprets uncertainty as danger. So instead of moving forward, you stall, you overthink, you wait for motivation, you tell yourself that you'll start when you have more time, more clarity, or more energy. But here's the truth. Momentum does not come from thinking. Momentum comes from movement. You don't build momentum by planning forever. Trust me, I tried. You build momentum by taking action, even the tiniest action. One of the biggest myths about productivity is that you need to start with the most important part of the project. But often, that's exactly what keeps you stuck. Let's say you want to write a report. Your brain might tell you that you should start with the introduction. But the introduction requires clarity. It requires direction. It requires you to know exactly what you're writing and where it will go. So you sit there just staring at a blank page, trying to craft the perfect opening, and nothing happens. But what if instead you started somewhere easier? Maybe you outline a few bullet points. Maybe you write one section in the middle. Maybe you simply create the document and name the file. Suddenly, the project is no longer something that you want to do but aren't doing. It exists. You have started. And that changes everything. Momentum is powerful because it shifts your internal state. When you start something, your brain releases dopamine. And dopamine is the chemical that is associated with motivation and reward. So even a small completed action can make you feel more energized and more capable. And that's why when you clean one small corner of your house, suddenly you want to clean the entire room. Or when you send one email, you feel ready to send 5 more. When you start writing one paragraph, the next one comes easier. Action fuels motivation, not the other way around. And this is something that high performers understand intuitively. They don't wait to feel ready. They start small. And momentum carries them forward. So how do you actually apply this in your life or your work? The strategy is simple. Instead of asking, what is the most important thing to start? Ask yourself, what is the easiest possible step I can take right now? And I want to emphasize something important here. Easy does not mean insignificant. Easy means accessible. It means something that requires very little resistance to begin. For example, if you're launching a program, the easiest step might be writing a rough list of ideas. If you're preparing a presentation, the easiest step might be opening the slides and writing a title. If you're recording a podcast, the easiest step might be writing the episode title or a few talking points. If you're working on a big work project, the easiest step might be gathering the data that you need. The goal is simply to begin moving. Now, there are 3 major reasons why this strategy is so effective. First, it lowers resistance. When something feels easy, your brain doesn't push back as hard. It doesn't feel threatening, so you're much more likely to begin. Second, it builds confidence. Every small action you take sends your brain a signal. I can do this. That builds belief, and belief fuels action. And third, it creates momentum. Once you're already working, continuing becomes much easier than starting. Starting is friction, but continuing is flow. So let me give you a simple example. Imagine you need to prepare a big presentation for work. Your brain might tell you that you should start by designing the entire structure of the presentation. But that feels like a lot. So instead, you start with something easy. Maybe you open the slide deck and write the title. Then you write 3 bullet points. Then you add 1 slide with key ideas. And before you know it, you're already working. The project that felt overwhelming 30 minutes ago now feels manageable. Not because the project changed, but because you started. This is something that I see often with ambitious women. You're capable, you're driven, and you have high standards. But those high standards can sometimes become the very thing that slows you down. You want the project to be excellent. You want the idea to be clear. You want the outcome to be meaningful. And all of that is beautiful. But sometimes that desire for excellence turns into pressure. And pressure creates hesitation. This is why learning to start imperfectly is one of the most powerful leadership skills that you can develop. Because leaders who create impact are not the ones who wait until everything is perfect. They're the ones who start. They learn, they adjust, and they keep moving. One of my favorite tools for building momentum is something I call the 5-minute entry point. Now, instead of committing to finishing a project, you commit to working on it for 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes. Your only goal is to begin. Because once you're 5 minutes in, the resistance is gone. And most of the time, you'll keep going. Now that strategy works beautifully because it removes the pressure of completion. You're not committing to finishing the project. You're simply committing to starting. This is actually something that I use with my workouts. When I don't feel like moving my body, I tell myself that I will do it for 5 minutes. And if it still sucks after 5 minutes, that I'm allowed to stop. It removes that resistance and the barrier to starting. And not once have I stopped after 5 minutes. Now, another powerful aspect of this approach is identity. Every time you start something, you reinforce the identity of someone who takes action. You become someone who follows through, someone who moves ideas forward, someone who creates. And that identity shift is incredibly powerful. Because success is not built in one giant leap. It is built through small, consistent actions over time. And this concept also applies to leadership. When you're leading a team, projects can feel overwhelming for everyone involved. And the same principle applies. Break the project into simple steps. Start with something easy. Create movement. Momentum is contagious. When one person begins, the others follow. Progress then becomes visible, and then suddenly what once felt overwhelming becomes achievable. So the next time that you feel stuck on a project, try this. Instead of asking yourself, how do I finish this? Ask, what is the easiest possible step that I can take right now? Maybe it's opening the document. Maybe it's writing one sentence. Maybe it's sketching an idea. Maybe it's making a quick list. But whatever it is, start there. Because the easiest step is often the doorway to momentum. People often believe that productivity is about discipline. But more often, productivity is about reducing the friction. The easier you make it to start, the more likely you are to take action. So simplify the entry point. Lower the barrier. Start small. And let momentum do the rest. So here's something I'd love for you to try this week. Think about one thing you've been delaying. Something that feels big. Something that feels heavy. And instead of planning the entire project, ask yourself one simple question. What is the easiest step that I could take today? Then give yourself 5 minutes. Just 5. And begin there. You might be surprised how quickly momentum starts to build. Momentum is not something to wait for. It is something you create. One small action at a time. One easy step at a time. And one moment of courage at a time. And when you learn to trust that process, you'll find that starting becomes easier. Projects move forward faster. And your vision begins to take shape in ways that once felt impossible. So I'm reminding you to keep choosing yourself, your vision, and your values. That is real power. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into the EmpowerElle Podcast. I hope today's episode inspired you and gave you practical insights to help you navigate your journey as an ambitious, high-achieving woman. Remember, every step you take towards building your confidence and embracing your full potential is a step closer to creating the life you truly desire. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their power and live their best lives. Don't forget to join our community on social media for more resources, tips, and inspiration. Until next time, lead with power and live with wellness. You are unstoppable.